Welcome back to part 2 of Daniel Lawrence versus Daniel Berman. Instead, in this position, I should have played knight a5, but what I actually did was queen to e3, which is also book, but actually not very good for black to win this game. So let's take a look. This is the game continuation. Bishop takes, knight to a4, rook to c1 guarding, c3, bishop to e6. This is a blunder. Now remember, this is a 10-minute game, so I make some mistakes, and so does he. Knight to d4. Now, unfortunately, I can't take on c4 right now because my knight on c6 is hanging twice. And if I go knight takes d4, my b7 pawn is hanging, and also it straightens out his doubled pawns. So I just retreat. He castles. Knight to a5, attacking c4 one more time. And he plays knight to b5. Now he's threatening c7, and if I castle, he's also threatening a7, and I can't take on c4. So actually, white is probably better in this game right now. But I continue fighting. Don't give up. I play king to d8. Fritz said only move, and I played it. Bishop to d4, attacking my g-pawn. Rook to e1, attacking his e-pawn. And apparently, my rook getting to the 7th is more important than him winning my g-pawn. Fritz liked e3, and I played g6. Knight to a3, guarding his c-pawn. So all his pawns are guarded. He still has an extra pawn. And I play c6. So one of the things I like about this opening is, although I'm down a pawn, he's just defending. He's put a rook on c to guard a pawn. He put the knight on a3, guarding another pawn. And I can develop freely. He plays rook c2, a developing move, hitting his rook. King over, getting my king up so I can develop my other rook. Bishop f6, stopping my rook from developing to where it wants to go. And knight to b6, double attacking the c-pawn. And here he gave up his c-pawn, played c5, and I took. And if you notice, my king does not have many squares. And if you can get a bishop to check me on that dark diagonal, then I could be in big trouble. So he brings the bishop back to try to do that. And I move my knight to give myself a square in front of my pawns. And it looks like my king's in a little bit of trouble, but if you look, he has no more rook checks. He can't go to b2 or b1 with his rooks. So I'm actually pretty safe here. And he can't penetrate by going to d6 or d7. So he plays knight takes knight, knight takes knight. Still can't check me on the b file with either rook. He brings the rook straight back. I challenge the rook. He plays bishop to g5, which is a very good move. I go rook takes, and now I get my king back into guarding the squares. I don't want his rook to get in. Plays bishop to f1, attacking my knight. I play bishop to e6, protecting my knight. And he plays bishop to f4, king back. Bishop takes. And if you look at the position now, it's bishops of opposite colors. Bishops of opposite colors is usually pretty drawish, even with rooks on the board. And if you trade off the rooks, then it's almost always a draw. I believe here my opponent should have been able to draw the game with best play, but he was unable to find it. If you look at my bishop on c4, it's stopping his king from entering immediately on f1. He plays instead rook to d6. So I play rook to e6. And at about now, I was ahead of my opponent on time. I may have had 3 minutes and he had 2 minutes. And he goes rook takes, bishop takes. And he had, at this point, asked for a draw. And I said no. And we continue playing. He played a3. And I played b5, getting my pawn majority going. Now he can get his king into the game. King f1. King b7. King e2. a5. Bishop to e5. Maybe bishop d6 would have been a lot better here. King to b6. King to d2. b4. ab. cb. cb. and ab. Now king to c2. And it may not look like it, but I got two passed pawns, and I'm probably winning. Um, because the bishop's probably going to have to sack itself against one of those two pawns, or against both of those two pawns, and I probably can win the bishop in two pawns versus four pawn ending. I played c5, f4, c4, bishop f6, king b5, getting my king closer, and king b2. In a position like this is probably a good thing to learn. If you have pawns and a bishop, you should push, if you can, you should always lead with the pawn that's opposite color to your bishop. You should always check with the dark square pawn if you have a light square bishop. And the reason why is because if you check with the light square pawn, the king can go to that dark square and form a blockade. So I played c3, and my opponent played king to c2 because he couldn't go to b3 because of my white squared bishop. And I go king up, bishop to e7, b3 check, king c1, and again I don't push my light square pawn, I push my dark square pawn. And if he goes king b1, I can play bishop to f5 check and queen on the next move. And here on b3 check, b2 check, my opponent resigned. So I hope you enjoyed this game, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.